because I think a lot of times clients aren't familiar with that first party NPI, that data, and how they can really leverage it to reach their niche HCP audience online. Are you cool with starting with that one?
Sure, sure. Yeah, it's one of the cool things that we've really been able to focus in on with the kind of the biotechnology industry that we're really focused on marketing. So NPI, National Provider Identifier, is a federal database of anyone who is licensed within the medical field, and we're able to use that public information essentially to be able to target those people online. Sorry, doctors, we can find you where you are. And
Hey,
so the cool
hey,
thing,
Sean, we're
yeah,
all creepers. We're marketers, right? We're all creepers.
yeah, it's a little bit like that. Feels a little creepy, but that's okay. The idea is that if you can deliver, targeted marketing that you care about, then it's not so creepy. Perhaps, I don't know. And so, with that, the cool thing about targeting these healthcare providers is that we can use a list that our clients maybe already have curated themselves, right? So it's not uncommon for our clients to have access to a list that says, here's a list of surgeons within this particular specialty that that we're looking to reach. And we can use that. And then we can target them specifically on a one-to-one level online, particularly through display advertising. And then there's ways to continue that in other tactics as well, beyond display advertising. If that isn't available to our clients, so if they don't already have that list, if they do have the specialty or even a CPT code, like we can get pretty specific in curating a list for our clients. And we generate that list of the providers by NPI number, and then we use that again in the same way to be able to target.
Yeah, it's come up in several conversations, as you know, Sean. Some clients need like to give them access to those NPI numbers, right? To actually be able to reach those niche HCPs. But the other point that you mentioned too is some clients use a database a la like a Definitive Healthcare, right?
Mm-hmm.
To pull those NPI numbers. And really it ultimately comes down to your point earlier too. It's like what ICD-10 codes, what CPT codes, what NPI numbers do you want to reach your audience? And then maybe walk us through a little bit. Once we get those NPI numbers, and whether we provide it or the client provides it, how do we help bridge the gap with specifically having that data and then knowing that that HCP, a la being creepy online, is actually there to serve that ad to them?
Yeah. So we definitely get that question that comes up. So the cool thing is that we have partnered with a company whose kind of primary, uh, I guess, goal of the organization is to aid in healthcare recruitment. So they're using their platform to help with career building in healthcare. But what they're doing as part of using that platform to the healthcare providers, it's a free platform. But as many things that are free, you're also opting into advertising in this case. And so what they're able to do is you have this database that is a publicly available database, the NPI National Directory. And then you have a population that is looking for career building. And they're logging in on an online platform and they're providing personal information so that they can be contacted about a career opportunity. And what's happening is that is then identifying who that person is. They then take that data, they marry it together with the national database. And then with that anonymous identifier, so that at that point it becomes anonymous, we're able to use that and then advertise to those individuals wherever they might be on any other website. Because now we've already identified that this is in fact Dr. Jonathan Smith, and Jonathan Smith then subsequently goes to read the news on CNN or on another, news Yahoo financial page, let's say. And so that's how we're bridging that gap, and then we can serve them those ads on those lifestyle websites.
Yeah. So like lifestyle sites, and I've explained this to clients many different ways, but typically it's like hey, HCPs go online, right? We get that question like, is my doctor, is my nephrologist really going to like, are they online? Well, yeah, they're going online for personal things, right? So they still are human beings, right? They want to check their news, they want to check the sports, they want to check the weather. So to your point about lifestyle sites, those are the types of sites that those banner ads are being shown. So it's not like again that we're not targeting. It's like really focused on those lifestyle sites as they're basically kind of navigating it, right? I mean, that's
Right.
probably the easiest way to explain that.
Yeah. And just to continue that a little bit further, is that you can get very niche in which websites you want to focus on, right? And the challenge with that is that you don't want to perhaps limit it too much, because then you're making assumptions about your audience that may or may not be true.
Right.
And you're limiting your deliverability, and you're driving your costs up at that point, right? So the more narrow you get, the more expensive it's going to become, right? So we can get all the way down to an EHR. So if they want to advertise like on an EHR platform, we can get you there. Like that can happen, but that's really expensive. And it may not be the only place that you want to really be, right? We understand the providers are there, but maybe that's not the only place you want to be. So in general, we keep it pretty broad, and we also, of course, are we have a blacklist of websites that we're not going to be advertising on, inappropriate websites, for example. So we're not in those places. Nowhere that the brand image would be at risk, of course, but it is a fairly large pool of websites that are lifestyle oriented, that they basically self-select. So if they're there and we notice that they're there and the inventory is available to serve an ad, then they'll see our ad.
Gotcha. Yeah, no. And these things aren't easy to set up, right? It definitely takes a team,
Mhm.
takes the strategy, because, at the end of the day, it's always figuring out, well, what's the KPIs to your point? Like, how are we focusing on the audience? Is that the right audience? What's the length of the campaign? We really help and collaborate with the clients to help determine really, hey, what are the, and I say this, it's funny when we did the pre-talk, it's like I said connecting the dots, but you're like, no, it's the components. Like, what are the components, right?
Yeah.
Of setting these up, because it's not just like, hey, okay, you've got your audience, you've got some of your messaging, but to your point, like, let's talk a little bit about how we are with those different components. In your words, putting those components and putting them all together, because it takes definitely a lot of internal work with our clients, but then us collaborating with them. So, like, what's the first component that we typically look at when we put these campaigns together, Sean?
Yeah. So the first, great question. I mean, there are several things that are important to kind of get lined up as we work on these campaigns and get them running. So the first thing is actually something we already started talking about ahead of this, which is the audience, right? So you've got to define who that audience is. And we've talked a lot about healthcare providers, HCPs, but there's all kinds of different audiences, right? So we can define down the HCP audience, but if we're targeting, let's say, patients or other types of areas, like obviously we need to know who that audience is. So that seems pretty self-explanatory, but obviously really important to get right. The next thing is starting to think about creative, right? So if we're running advertising, you've got to have some kind of creative elements that are shown to them so that they can take an action, right? So that's the second thing. Then the third thing is, once they see the ad and maybe they click on the ad, where are they going to go? Right. And those have to be connected in some way, right? So it's, if you're, have an offer or a learn more type call to action, when they get to the page, you probably don't want to just send them to your homepage. You want to send them to something that's going to help them take further action or get additional education about something specific that we're talking to them about, right? And that could be a landing page, that could be a product page, and so forth. And on that page, we want to make sure that we have and define some kind of conversion, because we would like to assess the performance of this in some way, one way or another. So whether that is a form completion for, raising their hand and asking to have a conversation with somebody and furthering the conversation, whether that's a download, maybe it's a product sheet, maybe it's the data, maybe it's a poster, there's many different things that, is kind of a soft conversion point, of course, because it's furthering the conversation, but at least it gives you something to hang your hat on about the performance of how this is doing, right? Um, And then two others is a retargeting pixel. So one of the things that I talk about a lot in digital advertising is retargeting. Anytime you can retarget somebody, that is usually one of your highest converting channels when you compare it to other tactics in digital. And that's just because these are people that have already checked you out, right? They already had a level of interest. It's just a matter of staying on the radar. So by adding that retargeting pixel, then you're able to extend the life of that interest, right? So maybe they went there, they had a few seconds, but then they got distracted and weren't able to finish, or maybe they wanted to come back to it and they get busy with their day and they forget about it, right? But with retargeting, we continue to stay on their radar so that then they can be reminded and come back again. And then the last component that I like to really work on is with clients is getting the website analytics sorted out, right? So again, assessing that performance, how did it do, and how does it compare to other channels? A lot of times when we're running these NPI campaigns, this is a display campaign, which is if you look at a customer lifetime or a customer journey funnel, if you will, this is high funnel, right? This is branding, this is awareness. And so what happens is that really can influence the other lower funnel areas, right? So when you're talking about a paid search campaign or an SEO effort, you should see a lift in those as well because you're running a display campaign that's reminding people about your brand, about your product, and about the options or the benefits that you can offer those individuals. Um, so I think that's all I want to cover. I think there is one more thing you asked me in the pre-call. You asked me about ROI because we get that right. This is an investment. In marketing is an investment, and you're wanting to get a return on that. And in the healthcare setting, like what we're talking about with most of our clients, they're not buying this test online, right? They're not going to just,
Yeah.
1995 and have it shipped to your home and one and done, right? So this is different than a consumer-oriented program, and so we really are wanting to make sure that we have those conversion points defined, but then really understanding what the value of that conversion is, right? And there's a couple ways that you can look at the value. One is comparing to other campaigns that you may have run in the past, right? So if there's other campaigns or other efforts that have happened, what did that cost and what did perhaps that yield, or something rough at least, right? So you have something to compare against. The next one is understanding in the business. So if you can set a goal for yourself, and let's say that your conversion point is a form that somebody's raising their hand, and during the course of the campaign, maybe you set a goal of 100 leads or 50 leads or whatever that is, and then at least you have, even if it's not a baseline, at least it's a goal line, right? And at the end, hey, if we spend X and we get this, then we know that that's going to be good because, hey, based on business metrics, maybe with the sales team, if they, made 100 calls, they know that 8% maybe of those are actually like legitimate, strong conversations that are ready to move forward today. And a percentage of those will, move forward to purchase, let's say. And then you can kind of do the math from there. So that's some of the recommendations I have as far as components.